Okay, well, I want to welcome everybody from 100 Thieves. I'm going to go ahead and toss it to you, Papasmithy, to introduce your team, and whoever's going to give your opening statement can go right ahead and do it. And we'll go from there. And afterwards, I will call on reporters as they raise their hands, and we'll ask questions that way.
Roger that. Thank you very much, Jen. So on the call today, we have three people from 100 Thieves staff, myself, Christopher Smith, or Papasmithy. I'm the general manager of League of Legends here at 100 Thieves. We actually still have scrims and internals going on here, so we could not have a member of our direct coaching staff involved, but Joseph Jang, who's worn a lot of hats at 100 Thieves, been around since the start. He's currently the head of strategy and analytics, so definitely helping us with the fact that we have our three pillars here, LCS, Academy, and Amateur, and all the realities around kind of keeping on top of their development and also looking outside. And finally, Jacob Toft Anderson, or Melk, he is the VP of Esports here, so League of Legends, but also other esports. So definitely kind of gives us the perspective we need, given that we wear a lot of hats here at 100 Thieves. So in regards to the opening statement, I know the question is mostly like, looking back at the 3 weeks of stage games, I guess, or more than 3 weeks now, but 2 weeks of LCS and the lock-in tournament, and kind of our big takeaways. For us at 100 Thieves, our off-season started really early. The moment we were eliminated by EG in the first round of the playoffs in summer, we started looking to what could 2021 bring, because we weren't happy with our overall competitive performance, especially. There were definitely wins for 100 Thieves in 2020, largely around our development and our amateur program and things like that. But in terms of LCS performance, there was definitely that internal question of like, development is a pitch, development is something we want to keep doing, but does that development have to happen exclusively at the LCS level, or can it actually be a team that contends and a team that develops? And I think Cloud9 obviously in the past have done a really good job of wearing both those hats. And so we went hard to work and ended up with the roster that a lot of people have come to enjoy so far in 2021. Definitely the end point of 4 Golden Guardians players and someday was not the original mission statement. We were very clear about what we were looking for in terms of players when it came to players with real carry potential, players that would draw enemy resources both at the top and the bottom of the map and in the jungle and the mid lane, wherever possible, and a right balance to make that happen. And the end point was the roster you see in front of it. And then coming into the lock-in tournament, we had really positive results in practice. And so the first question was, okay, what does this team look like on stage? You have that inkling from 2020, but the confirmation of some really positive results on stage definitely gave us a lot of confidence. But probably the biggest win I've seen as a GM is that obviously we came in strong with aggressive dives and were able to take down some really conclusive early games. But from there, teams cottoned on to our strategy. They were over-preparing and preparing for the strategy we showed. And I love the fact that come week 2 of the regular season, we're already showing that we're not a one-note team. You can't just circle early game dives and then be in position to just answer everything 100 Thieves League of Legends has to throw at you in 2021. I think we've already shown that we have more strings to the bow. And I think we don't necessarily get the benefit of the doubt on that because we don't have as many players who've had really long statures in the LCS. It's really only Someday in his role, and then obviously who he is a player in 2 roles now. So from there, we're just trying to show our fans that this is a team you can have high expectations in. Like, this is a team that definitely the end and the beginning won't necessarily be one-to-one the same. We're looking to continue to develop and targeting championships as our ultimate goal and having fun doing it where possible. So far, so good on that regard, but definitely far from job done. We want to keep being the pace setter rather than being a team that has one good idea but gets caught up by the pack as the season goes on.
Great, thank you. So we will start taking questions. You guys just can raise your hand. All right, Thomas, you are first.
Hey guys, just making sure that you guys can hear me. This question is
loud and clear.
Papasmithy and Joseph. What's the biggest thing that you think needs to be changed about the LCS Academy and amateur scenes to better promote younger talent?
So obviously that's something that we thought a lot about, right? the idea of promoting talent. The 100 Thieves Next initiative last year was around trying to find that talent. And I think overall, Academy has done a really good job of promoting a lot of the most promising players that we looked at. Because obviously we spent a lot of time looking at amateur players in 2020 and have promoted players already in ourselves. When it comes to more players being promoted, the one thing I can say is definitely just getting them in front of eyes and also having discerning big staffs that are looking for that talent. I think that was an issue in previous years. And Next was that first kind of like, hey guys, look over here. There is a lot of good stuff going on at other levels. And I think the community has done a good job of pushing the agenda as well. So I think already I've seen a lot more fervor when it comes to people paying attention to these lower levels. Now, the question of when to pull the trigger, when to fully go all in on a young talent is something that I think a lot of teams are wrestling with in different ways. You look at some of the development rosters this year as kind of a push towards that. So I think already the answers are happening there, but the kind of like win state, what the success state looks like for that is more going to be judged in hindsight, in a couple of years' time to really understand who wore it best or who did it best. Whereas right now, I kind of just look at people taking different approaches than just these are the 5 best players we could get as already a win on that development kind of mindset. Joe, did you have any other thoughts on that idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think just bringing attention to the scene more in general. I think Riot definitely moved in the right step this year by adding some of the amateur players to the GCD. So it gives amateur organizations like a legitimate reason to compete and invest in the scene. Whereas before, a lot of the LCS organizations were seeing Academy as kind of a venture that wasn't that profitable because a lot of the LCS teams were kind of based on pay-to-win models. I think with the success of a lot of organizations with some of their amateur players, I think our program from last year and C9's programs from Academy in the previous years has kind of shown like that there is a lot of profit and a lot of potential with signing these amateur and really high level rookie talent in your Academy program. So I think this year has been a really good, movement. I think there's been a lot more eyes at the amateur scene where people are actually doing a much more responsible job of scouting. So I think as long as the intention is there and Riot continues to do a good job of promoting that it's an adventure that they're serious about, I think we'll have a really good shot at bringing a lot more talent to the table.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Let's go with Travis next.
The man himself.
Hey, this question is for Jacob. Jacob, are you able to confirm any reports that team owners are asking Riot to lift the import restriction rule? And regardless of your answer to that question, what is 100 Thieves' stance on the issue? Does 100 Thieves believe that the import rule should be lifted?
I think I can put it this way, that there's definitely conversations happening. Whether they are going in either direction, I can't really speak to. I'm also not privy to that information currently. I would say that we have a firm belief that there could be changes to the import rules. Whether that's the way that it's been reflected in media lately is a different question entirely. That being said, as both Chris and Joseph just alluded to, we put a lot of focus on innate talent, and we firmly believe that there's a massive upside in continuously developing North American talent, and that we can actually compete at Worlds with North American talent. So I hope that answers your question. I can't answer whether it's one or the other direction, because it's just not that black and white for us.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's go with Ryan next.
Hey guys, this is Ryan with Stack.gg. This question can be for anyone, but would love to hear a little bit about how the relationship with Sequoia has been and what your views are on institutional investors taking stakes in esports organizations.
Yeah, so I'll take that one. It's been nothing but good so far. Obviously, it's allowed North American esports in general to really flourish and blossom up to a point where we're competing side by side with mainstream sports, and really taking the professionalization of the industry as a whole to a different level. So we're very happy and content with everything going on, and we definitely welcome the expertise that comes with it.
Thank you.
All right, let's go with Jay Hunter next.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
All right, my name is Jay Hunter. I'm from Esports Network. This is a question for Joseph. I wanted to ask, throughout the spring lock-in and the current season, we've seen ADC champions take the spotlight, from Kaisa to Vayne and Jin more. Compared to season 10, do you think mythics and various item changes has affected the bottom lane for good or for worse? And if for worse, what are some changes that you'd like to see to improve it as the season progresses?
I think itemization with 80 carries has always been pretty linear. Previously, it was always like you either go lethality or build crit. And I think the mythic items provided a little bit more variability to that, where you have like different item paths that showcase kind of different strengths. So I think that's like a really cool implementation that they did. So that's one I specifically enjoy. I would say in terms of itemization outside of that, there hasn't really been much change for 80 carries. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, let's go with Andre next.
This question's for Papasmithy. So when you first joined 100 Thieves, you had a video alongside Nick Shot. It was either a video of you being introduced as a general manager or a heist video. And both of you basically, in conjunction, stated that the 100 Thieves goal was to win LCS. This might be a cliche question, or you might give a cliche or stereotypical answer, but is that the same goal, or has the goal changed to getting to Worlds or winning Worlds?
So I think the goal doesn't change a lot. The pathway can definitely change a lot. When we're doing that first opening video, we were still in the process of building our 2020 roster. We entered the 2020 season with very few players still under contract from the previous year that we were looking to return with. So it was very much, let's build a starting point. We know what the end goal is. And I think all teams, even if their short-term plans are less likely to be contending, are still building to eventually contend. And from there, we ended up building a third team. We ended up changing a lot of our roster coming into 2021. So I will say that the ideas of where and when to develop and to continually look out there for any roster changes we can make that will allow us to contend on a faster level is something that obviously I couldn't have foreseen a year and a half ago. But, we very much opened this offseason saying, okay, this year we didn't go the way we wanted to, especially at LCS level. Is there a shot for us to contend with the available talent out there? And obviously the transfer market goes in lots of different ways. And the answer at times was yes, at other times were no. With where we ended up, we're super confident that we have a team that contend for titles. It is very much not about scraping worlds for this roster. It is about keeping ourselves accountable to be a front runner rather than just a contender. So not a lot has changed since the initial mission statement, but the confidence now, having 1 year understanding what it is to be on the team side, to develop myself as a general manager. I was far from the finished article a year and a half ago, and I still have a lot of learnings to do. But I think given the bigger staff we have, given the team that we have, it feels like right now we're in position to strike, and we'll only know in hindsight where it goes, but definitely just as confident about the content of that pitch a year and a half ago now as I ever have been.
Great, let's go with Tyler next.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. So I'm Tyler from Esports, and this is a question for Papasmithy and Joseph. You guys have built this kind of like ecosystem within your organization to kind of build up talent on like 100X and 100 Thieves Academy. It seems like a really great ecosystem. Now, I wanted to ask, how much focus does the team kind of give to solo queue when you guys are scouting for new talent to add to these teams moving forward?
That's a good question. I'll open it up and then I'll pass it over to Joe. I will say that definitely it's a topic that I think where you put importance on it changes a bit with level. Like, for example, when we're looking at 100 Thieves next, solo queue, I think, is one of the best possible places to detect new talent. It's very much a case of just cold reaching out to players and being like, hey, like, is this a Smurf account, or is this who is this kind of thing? And then that's one of the few ways you can find these 15, 16, 17-year-old players who haven't already been on an amateur team or networked extensively or streamed and things like that. When it comes to more established players, very much it's a case where when you're interviewing a potential LCS player, their approach to solo queue, whether it's amount or champion flexibility, or whether they just stick to their main role or play lots of different roles, I think those are all interesting interview questions, because when it comes to solo queue for pros, obviously there's kind of a minimum standard that you internalize, but also your hope is that they use solo queue for a very specific goal. Like they're actually trying to get something scholarly out of solo queue, because mindlessly playing a lot of games versus mindfully playing a certain amount of games is definitely a sort of balance that you want to kind of probe and ask questions around to make sure there's actual intent behind the solo queue practice.
Yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much nails it. The thing that I would probably add is when it comes to adding players to our program, whether that's at the academy or amateur level, we've kind of worked really extensively figuring out like the characteristics and the process and determining like what makes a player actually good. And we're kind of applying that rubric across all of our players. So for a lot of the academy players, they usually have a split of experience, whether it's an amateur where they have some live footage on YouTube or Twitch, or they've had like a previous split in academy. So we can kind of use that footage to kind of leverage our scouting process, as well as doing an in-person interview just to kind of see if they would be a good cultural fit for the program. When it comes to like amateur players who have had zero competitive footage and no 5v5 footage, that's kind of when we need to use a solo queue footage to see if they have certain characteristics that would make certain players shine. I think a really good example would be Connor from SKT. I know that's like a story that we talk about in our coaching staff, where he was a random Diamond 1 trick before he was a professional top laner for SKT. And he was literally picked up because one of the junglers said, hey, this guy's hard stuck D1, but he has the characteristics to be a really, really good player. So I think it's a work in progress, and solo queue is definitely a resource. And I think once a lot of the NA pros also put more effort into these in-houses, I think we'll also have additional tools to continue scouting for talent in our amateur scene.
Great, let's go to Matt next.
Hey y'all, how's it going?
This
is Matt, also from Stacked. I just wanted to follow up on my colleague Ryan's question. Jacob, regarding the investment from Sequoia, is there anything at all? Like you said, there were a lot of things that have become possible because of the investment. So I wanted to wonder what those specific things were and whether it gives you an edge over other LCS teams without those kind of investment routes.
Yeah, so I think it's not unique to Sequoia, and I think we operate a business in which I think we can probably say that it's more so being prepared for any investments or any monetary need that we have in the future that really enables us to run our business without worry of what happens, 6 months, 12 months, and 3 years down the line. So it's more so. When we're talking capital, it's more so a safety net in order for us to really pursue the right opportunities if and when they do come along. But outside of that, it's obviously the expertise and the significance of the doors that that opens that we really utilize currently.
Okay, thank you.
I see Travis might have follow-up questions.
Let's go with Eddie next. Travis, you'll get your question after everybody else.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. So now that there's an streaming Spanish for LCS in charge of FlyQuest and LCS, discussion for Papasmithy and Jacob, how are you gonna get closer to Spanish-speaking viewers, and especially for Latin American fans?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I think we look at what FlyQuest is doing with their Spanish stream and the initiatives there, and it's definitely something that's really impressive. I mean, you're asking about closer to the Spanish fans. It's also closer to the Turkish fans, right? We now have 2 TCL players on our roster with Closer in LCS and Luger in Academy, and both of them performing well with already established fan bases. So I think it's definitely food for thought for things we can do. I'm proud that just 2 days ago, we were able to put out the heist with Turkish subtitles. And I think that's a way for the Turkish fans to become a bit more connected to this weird and wonderful world of 100 Thieves we have over here. And we definitely look at the stuff that FlyQuest is doing as an inspiration, because we already had ideas. Just stepping into Closer's huge Twitch channel, you can see there's a lot of people there. And I feel like the overall English level among the Turkish fans isn't super high. No reason that it should be. Obviously they consume content in their local language. So finding ways to cater towards those fans and bring them into the fold rather than this like language barrier interrupting is absolutely one of our big priorities here.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
All right, we'll try to jam through the final 2 questions and try to get to one more. Nick from InVen, you're next.
Hey guys, Nick from InVen Global here. Thanks for your time. My question is for anybody on the 100 Thieves staff that feels appropriate to answer. But we've seen rebuilds on a team around like a franchise player, like Sunday's been with the organization for a long time before. But this a unique aspect of 100 Thieves roster is you have that familiar franchise player who's been with the org for a long time, and then the 4 players rebuilt around him aren't just from different aspects of different regions or rosters. It's a previously established core. Have there been any unique challenges in assimilating these 2 parts of your roster, given the familiarity between the 4 players signed and also the tenure, the length of tenure that somebody's been on the roster?
I think it's a really interesting question, because very much there's 2 sides to the coin in bringing over 4 players from a roster. Like, we're bringing in 4 players from a roster who definitely caught the fans' imagination on Golden Guardians, who were trending positively, but ultimately, weren't able to finish in a top 3 position. And there's always going to be baggage associated with bringing in players who had some success, but none in terms of like the championships and ultimately going to Worlds like they wanted. It was a process we definitely went into eyes open, very much kind of meeting with all the players and trying to understand what previous grievances were, what previous synergies were. Like, you have to be eyes open to the things that happened in the past rather than just thinking you can put a new coat of paint on the same players and expect different results. And so that was definitely something we were very aware of. And the integration between a franchise player like Someday and the Golden Guardians core, on the one hand, it being a top laner we were integrating who already has been world-class at strong side and weak side play, is about as easy a fit as you can get away with when it comes to, obviously top lane, largely a one-on-one role. But definitely, I feel like we set ourselves up for success kind of just with the player that Someday is and the loyalty he's shown to the org. And it is this fun meeting of the old 100 Thieves and now this new 100 Thieves that we're embracing. But I would say one of our big priorities was don't assume anything, even though like people thought they understood kind of what Golden Guardians as a team were in 2020. We were very much about, let's look at all these pieces discreetly. Let's look at the value they bring individually. And we very much chose these players in individual junctures and at different times in the off season, and it eventually came together as a core, and we do get that initial kind of opening synergy. But like I mentioned, we were aware of kind of like the potential low rolls that it could bring as well.
All right, let's go with Jared.
Hi, my name is Jared. I'm from Stropsy. This question is for anyone who can answer early. Can you talk about some of the ways that 100 Thieves innovates at an organizational level in ways that other teams may not?
Joe, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been working at this company for a really long time, and I think one thing that really stuck with me is that leadership is really, really open to the idea of people just having passion projects and really exploring really niche aspects of the whatever job that they're doing that they haven't explored before. So that's kind of how I am at this role that I'm in now.
Can you give them a bit of a kind of background to even your role journey? Because it's been you've kind of been everywhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was initially talking to Blake, who was one of the initial investors of 100 Thieves, and Nate Shot, and I was helping them build the academy program. Eventually helped with a lot of the analytics, and I was coaching for LCS all of last year. And then this year, I really felt like there was a need for a lot more robust software, honestly, for a lot of the competitive programs across all of esports. So this was kind of the role that I thought would have the most potential to grow. So I think just that unique aspect of 100 Thieves is what allows us to flourish and kind of never settle. I think that's been a really powerful mantra at this company that everyone kind of embodies.
And if I'm bouncing off it, coming in as my first general manager role, there's a lot of different ways you can onboard somebody. You can kind of leave very little decision trees because you're just kind of trying to always keep within a formula and potentially even smother with that kind of leadership. But I think we have the exact opposite here, where they're very much, if you are a person they think has a vision for something that also aligns with company goals, which usually when it comes to us is winning championships and pushing boundaries, they're very, very receptive to letting you and supporting you grow in a direction. And so far, we've already evolved a long, long way. I know that we came into the off season with obviously roster hopes for 2021, but also how different ways our program could evolve, whether it comes to something as minute as catering, but also when it comes to looking after the players' health needs and just trying to evolve the space rather than just exist in it. 100 Thieves have always been super receptive into anything that has a plan and anything that can be assessed consistently as it goes forward. So when that's the leadership that you exist under, the only limiting factor is yourself. And so we all push ourselves to exist in that space and also to perfect improvement in that space. So it's definitely a very good place to be a part of.
Thank you.
All right. Unfortunately, that is
okay. Jen, you muted yourself.
Sorry about that. Unfortunately, this is all the time we have for questions. So I want to thank everybody from 100 Thieves for coming by and taking the time to talk to us today. And good luck on the rest of the split.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for watching that interview. I got to say, just covering the games from home has made me feel a little thin lately, is maybe the best way to put it. But you know what is even thinner than how I feel? The amazing laptops that Alienware makes. I'm talking about the M15, M17. These things are beautiful. They are fantastic to be able to throw onto your backpack and bring with you to work or school or any number of different places. Get one now so that when we all start traveling and going places again, you'll be ready. You can go find those over at alienware.com/Travis, and Travis10 off is the code that you'll use. Save 10% off your order.